What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Daily Dose with Dylan Davis. As always, I'm your host, Dylan. You can give me a follow on Twitter at DylanJD98. And in the co-host seat today, as always, is my guy, Gint. You can give him a follow on Twitter at Matt_McGinty. And we are streaming to you guys live through the Paint and Lines Network on their Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube channel. So if you're new to the channel, please go give them a follow. Go give them hit that subscribe button and like this video. Today's show, we have another very special guest, the great Vince Quinn from 94 WIP and CBS Sports Radio. About to bring him in now. What's going on, man?
Yo, what's up, guys?
Not much. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hey, happy to hang out. There's a lot of stuff going on, man. It's going to be fun.
We'll wait till we get you all set up. But how have you been though, man? How's CBS Sports? I know you're always in the late slot there.
Well, yeah, I've been filling in the overnight all week this week, so it's a lot of 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. plus all the stuff with Last Out. I'm on 3 hours of sleep right now. I got the strongest coffee imaginable, and I'm just trying to survive, baby. But we're getting through. We're doing all right.
We got coffee. Gint's got some kind of crack energy drink over there that he can't stop drinking. It's an addiction at this point. And I just I'll try not to knock my drink off my desk again today, Gint, because yesterday was really bad. And I just let that drink sit on the floor till we ended the show. A whole type of mess over here. But anyway, guys, let's start with our Philadelphia Eagles because that is kind of what's fresh in my mind. The draft just took place this week. And honestly, I haven't talked to you, Vince, about this draft. Me and Gint haven't done a show together where I've gathered his opinions. I've only really talked to Scotty and Tyrone about it. So we'll roundtable this. Vince, how would you grade this Eagles draft class? What grade would you give Howie Roseman? And how are you feeling?
Yeah, so I give it a solid B. You look at what they did here, and look, Devontae Smith was a home run, right? Like, were you guys thrilled about that pick? I love that pick. That was one of those things. Just like, wow,
he knocked it out of the park.
Receiver. Yeah, and to trade up. So you knew, like, as dumb as it was, because the Giants, let's be real, the Giants had no business drafting a wide receiver. Like, that was a dumb idea for them. But they wanted Devontae Smith. And as much as it's a dumb idea, that's a good player. And, like, him being on the Giants would have sucked. So to be able to work out a deal with Dallas and for Dallas to recognize that Smith was going to be in the division either way, so you might as well just let him go to the Eagles and get a pick out of it. It worked for everybody. So I love that move. Dickerson, dude. Oh my God. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this. There was a video with Dickerson where in the national championship, last snap of the game, they had this moment where they put him in for the last snap of the game, even though he was injured and he couldn't play. They put him in just so he had this opportunity to be with his guys at the end of the season. And to see a little thing like that, it's like, wow, they really love this guy. So you see things about Dickerson along with the play, like as those being the two main guys, and obviously everybody they drafted, but for that to be the two main guys, loved it. Loved the draft. I'm super excited.
Okay, what's your grade for this? Because I haven't gathered this from you yet.
Yeah, I would give it a C. Pending Dickerson, just because, I mean, we talked about it yesterday with Tyrone a little bit. 4 season-ending injuries is not something that you're very thrilled about, but the way they're talking about his talent and that he could have been a first-round talent without those injuries, there's some upside. So if he pans out, this draft very well could be a B, like Vince just alluded to. So I'll give it a C for now, but, I mean, like every single draft, in 3 years we can sit here saying it was an A, and 3 guys turned out to be starters for us for X amount of years. But for now, I'm going to give it a C.
All right. Here's where I stand, and you're going to hear me kind of complain about this draft class for a little bit, but at the same time, my grade is a B with A potential, so I don't know. Take that for what you will. It doesn't really add up too much, but I really give it a B with A potential, a B to start, because I didn't expect Howie to do the right thing on night one. And like I'm still trying to gather my jaw up off the floor here on Wednesday night after he traded up and went and got who I thought was, realistically my number one choice at 12 where they stood. So that's why I give it a B. Gint's right. The pick that's going to push it up higher a grade is Landon Dickerson. However, Vince, you're upbeat with this Dickerson pick, and I need you. Yeah. I'm trying to take some of this energy from you, my man, because I don't know what to say. I get the upside. I get, if healthy, Landon Dickerson was a first-round talent. ACL, ankle, ACL. And with Howie's track record, how am I supposed to just sit back and be like, no, he's got it right this time? Now, this time the injury won't carry over to the NFL when I just had to witness what happened with Sidney Jones 3 years ago.
Well, that's the thing, and I'll admit this is a fault of mine. Is I'm always the guy in fantasy that drafts the injured player early, and I'm just like, they're going to come back. So I always have this optimism. Like and maybe it's my fault because I've never had like a serious injury like that. You know, I got stitches in my hand when I was 5. I broke a glass door. I wanted to ride my bike outside. It was a very big deal. Outside of that, like I've never broken a bone or torn anything. So maybe I'm just like too optimistic about this kind of stuff. But for him to have the injuries he's had, obviously it is a terrible feeling. And the Eagles' injury history, I mean, I don't know who they upset to get these kinds of injuries for the number of years they have. They've changed over the training staff a couple of times. So, like, it is exceptional, and there is reason to be worried about this. But they need offensive linemen. And if you could get a guy of this caliber and the work ethic is there and he's an Alabama guy, so the track record there is good. Like, there's enough things about this that when you have the line that they've got right now, which as it's healthy, because the nice thing is they're not drafting this guy to start right now. If he wins a starting job, great. He beat out Sayamalo, and he's starting at left guard. So I'm thrilled to see that. Like, I hope he gets to his starting gig later in the season if he comes back. But looking at things right now, it's let them develop. They need depth on the offensive line. Bad. That's what they're about.
Now, let me ask you guys this, though, when it comes to him you're assuming he's not starting, which he's not going to, and developing, like, that's like a pick for luxury. And they did that in the past couple of years. Like, the linebacker last year in the 3rd round is a luxury pick. The backup quarterback at the time last year in the 2nd round is a luxury pick. Now in the 2nd round this year, you're picking another guy that's not going to start. In the 3rd round, you're picking a rotational defensive tackle, right? They keep picking for luxury, and they're not filling any of the holes with starters. It's mind-numbing.
Okay, well, what starters – like, the team's not that good. So I don't care about starters right now. I don't care. Like, you're a bad team. Draft talent, build depth, have a base, have a future. Who are the good young players on this team prior to the draft? Like, Dallas Goedert, maybe. Nobody knows what to make of Jalen Hurts, really. I mean, what are you looking at? Like, what is the offense? If your best offensive player is Miles Sanders for the future, he's a running back. Like, he might not even be on the team in 2 years. Who knows? So get me guys that can play. Just get me guys that can play, build the attitude, build a culture. That was one of those things. I think it was Benetton had written this for Bleeding Green Nation. It's just like they drafted a lot of physical guys. And I love that. Like, get young team captain, physical players. Like, this is an identity thing. If they're going to be a run-heavy, physical, like the Colts teams that we've seen over the past couple of years, it seems like they're building that now. So, like, I don't care. Who cares about needs for a team that's going to win maybe 7 games out of 17? Like, I'm not worried about that.
So let me ask you this. Going into the 1st round, we talked about this yesterday a little bit. It was either wide receiver or corner. That's what everyone thought was going to come out of this. And then you don't take the other position because you obviously got wide receiver 1. You don't take the other position until the 4th round, and it's a guy that can't really play on the outside, some are saying. So is that something, again, we might not –
Is Vince okay?
I can't even – dude, my stand just, like, fell apart. I've got the stand for my iPad, and I guess I'll need a new stand for my iPad because this thing just outright died on me. That's why I've been scrambling. Like, I had a camera here that I used for my main computer. I realized I donated that to Last Out, so that's not even here anymore. So I was, like, getting ready to hop in a stream. I was like, oh, I don't have a webcam for my computer. Let me get the iPad. And now that's falling apart. Like my whole life. My whole life is just doing great. Everything is smooth. Everything is easy. Okay, so quarterback. Yes, that's where before everything went to crap. Let's talk about quarterback. So McPherson is a fun player. Like, it's one of those guys that, yeah, he's not going to be a top-end starter. You got Slay for now. This is a depth guy. You can't win everywhere. Would I have been good? Like, I would have been good if they got J.C. Horn. I would have been good if they got Surtain. I liked both of those guys. Asante Samuel would have been the most Eagles pick of all time. No, like, oh, we knew his dad, so let's go and draft him. I think people would have lost their minds on some level if they got Asante Samuel Jr. But, like, you can't win everywhere in the draft, and it's going to take time with this. I'm glad they invested in the position, but offensive line is a bigger priority for them. Defensive line is a bigger priority. They've been trying to get the wide receiver position right for a while. So I think you just know the value of everything in all of this, and they're valuing offense and the trenches, and then you go secondary next, and that's just how it fell.
So it's interesting you say that offensive and defensive line are a bigger need than corner, because and Abe has a comment somewhere here too about Howie's philosophy of building in the trenches. And while I agree that, I feel like a lot of football people say you win games in the trenches, you build through the trenches, and I get that. And Howie came out after the draft and said how, people, Eagles fans in the city might be sick and tired of us, taking offensive and defensive linemen, but that's how we won a Super Bowl. So you got one Super Bowl to show for it. Is my, this whole philosophy of building through the trenches, while I understand it, has resulted in one Super Bowl in Eagles history. So pardon me if I'm not jumping on board here. Secondly, to Gint's point, I'm not saying that neither were a need, right? Offensive line, we know it's aging. However, if you're looking at this year, Lane, Kelsey's going to be your starting center, Brandon Brooks, Sayuma's a good guard. And although there were 9,000 different rotations of offensive linemen last year, you saw some guys could play. Jack Driscoll, Nate Herbig can play, can fill in. You don't know what you have in Mailata, Dillard. So you have a lot of pieces there, right? Defensive line, aging as well, but you still have players right now. I would have addressed corner, and I think what Gint's trying to get at is, are you surprised that they waited? That was the big need in the first round. It was Horn or Surtain that they didn't go wide receiver. Are you then surprised that they waited until round 4 to address it? Not round 2, not round 3. You waited to the 4th round, pick 100 and whatever, to address that need that some thought you were going to take at 12.
Well, I think part of it is the way things fall. I mean, obviously there was some, I think the biggest thing that really determines this is the 3rd round pick when you go with Milton, because the thing is, they had a corner that was available. And if Tom Telesco, the fist bump of misery that everybody's been obsessing about, if that whole thing was based on the idea that they had the chance to get a corner and they didn't do it, then I think that tells you a good bit about how they feel, right? They were willing to go and trade back and take a defensive tackle and be okay with that, rather than just make sure they got the corner. So when they're making that kind of move, it's the secondary is obviously important. You look at the way the league is going, it's spread offenses. You need at least 3-4 guys that play corner specifically to be a decent team. You just need talent there. And they've tried that over the years. I mean, you had Rasul Douglas and Sidney Jones and Ronald Darby and just all these guys that didn't pan out. But when you're looking at what they do as well, the Eagles value safety a lot. And so when you're looking at the safety position, it's okay, well, you brought in Harris, you kept McLeod, you drafted Kayvon Wallace last year. What can they do at safety? What does that look like? They bring in guys, the guy out of LSU, what's his name? Jacoby Stevens.
Yeah, but they listed him at linebacker.
Well, they listed him at linebacker, but he has been a safety. He can do some things in coverage. So now you've got a linebacker that can move around and cover a little bit. Davion Taylor has a lot of athleticism. He might be able to cover all right as a linebacker. So when you're looking at what they've got in all these other parts of the field, they don't have the secondary yet. But if you got something at safety, you got something at linebacker that they can work with, it's not a total loss here. This team is bad. They got to fill a lot of holes, and it just takes time. So corner's going to suffer. Dallas could kill them. The receivers are great there. But, man, Giants could kill them in that way. So it could get ugly. But you can't fix everything. You just can't fix everything.
All right, real quick. So there are some comments here about the Milton pick. Abe likes it. Marky Mark has a hell of a comment. Geno Atkins / Aaron Donald's size and quickness. Talk to me about that pick, because I'm not going to front. I'm not going to come out like I know a lot about the pick here. Are you on board with the commenters, or were you upset with the 3rd round pick?
No, I wasn't upset at all, because for the Eagles, this is how they operate. This is what they've been all about, right? It was Malik Jackson. It's Javon Hargrave. They've lived in this world. Michael Bennett. It's all of these guys who can play like that and having some versatility. The fact that they're saying, okay, well, he can play on the outside as well as the inside. That's going to give him more opportunities to get snaps. It allows him to fill different holes based on injuries or guys that do or don't develop. So the opportunities for Milton to get playing time are greater just because of the kind of guy that he is. The funny thing is, though, that the Aaron Donald stuff is hilarious because, like, they get the spider graphs and all these comparisons, and he compares well to Aaron Donald, which naturally is just going to make people bug the hell out. Like, oh, wow, we got this guy in the third round. He's Aaron Donald. I can't believe Aaron Donald fell to the third round. It's like, no. He's not Aaron Donald. There are things to be said for, consistency and just overall, like, technique and all these different things that go into being a great football player. It's nice that physical traits comply or apply like that, but how many guys are compared to great players that aren't anything like the great player? It's just they're the same general height, weight, speed, whatever. So there's so much that goes into it. He's a fun player. I want to see what they do with him, but I think the potential there is good, especially for a third-round pick. He seems like a guy that could play right away.
So before you go, Gint, Vince, I got to tell you, man, you have said a couple times now, it's caught my attention, that the Eagles do this the Eagle way. We're not shocked because you're not making me feel any better because the Eagle way is how we got here, Vincent.
No, the Eagle way is how we got here, but also it's how we got to the top and the bottom. Like the Eagles' problems, it's not drafting offensive and defensive linemen that's caused the team to be a cluster. You know what? Like the problem for the team is that it's the one, Doug Peterson was not a great head coach. Let's be honest. The offense got stale and things weren't good. The assistants weren't good. So the whole thing backlogged that way. The drafting was bad in general. They had bad injury luck. Wentz isn't the guy that we thought he was going to be. So there's a lot of stuff that went wrong. For Roseman to get the draft right here, does that fix everything? No, but I think the philosophy is sound, and you just hope they nail the picks. You hope the coaching staff now is able to develop guys. And so when you're piling all of that together, that's what I'm looking for. And with this new staff, they got to prove me wrong. Like, they got to prove me wrong until I don't give them the benefit of the doubt.
Let me ask you this, because things took a real turn when J.C. Horn went.
Mm-hmm.
And if Denver didn't take Surtain, people thought Dallas would then took Surtain, and then Devontae Smith would have went to New York, and we would have been on the clock at 12.
Yeah.
With the four guys everyone kind of thought we were going to take off the board. Do you think there was any way, shape, or form our pick could have been Justin Fields?
Yeah. I mean, they left that door open a little bit, didn't they, guys? Like, there was enough opportunity where it was like, hey, we like Jalen Hurts, but, it's an open competition here. You're like, I don't know how I exactly feel about that one, but okay. So, yeah, I think they had to leave the door open because you just don't know. And if the guy does fall to their lap and they had the opportunity, they have to think about it. But clearly they decided, all right, we're going to give Hurts the shot. Maybe there is something to be said for Laurie breaking the tie there. But I don't mind them keeping the door open like that. Let's be honest. Jalen Hurts wasn't good enough that you can't look at Justin Fields.
So I guess I told you I gave it a B with A potential, although I turned around and kind of dumped on it for a second. But I'll give you, obviously, I think he knocked round one out of the park with Devontae Smith. I love the running back out of Memphis in the 5th round, and Kenny. He wants to go by Kenny, not Kenneth Gainwell. Yeah. And then one of my favorite picks came later in the draft. You already alluded to him, the safety linebacker hybrid in Jacoby Stevens. Vince, what's your favorite pick? And what's your least favorite pick of this year's draft?
Yeah, I mean, the favorite pick is easy. It's Devontae Smith. I mean, that guy was just ridiculously good. And it's not just the fact that he's a talent, but you look at the attitude that he's got. I mean, the number of things you read about Devontae Smith and just how hardworking he is and what that toughness is. You see it on the field. He runs through people. Like, people are like, oh, he's so skinny, and how can he play in the NFL? You haven't watched him play. Like, he runs through people. He can handle press coverage. So all the questions about him are a generalization, and they're just not a fact of the player. So I love everything about him. I'm incredibly excited about him, and I'm so excited about him, I forgot the second half of your question. What was the second part?
What's your least favorite pick?
Okay, so my least favorite pick, man, honestly,
it has to be one of the 5,000 defensive linemen they drafted, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's like guys like Teron Jackson has a fun idea of like, oh, he's a high motor guy and he had some production last year. So I get that they like him. I looked at him, I go, this is it's a depth guy. I don't think he's got a super high ceiling. So I like to see that in a later pick, but it is what it is. I'm not bent out of shape about anybody. I look at this whole thing. I think they got enough good energy here. Late picks are late picks. You see some potential. You see what the Eagles are doing in terms of converting guys. And I think the philosophy, because with the new coaching staff, a lot of it is just, what is this team going to be? How do they view players and value players? What are the systems going to be? So I think we got a good idea for what that's going to be here in year one. And I'm satisfied with that. I'm satisfied.
All right. I'm trying to think, what else do I have? Maybe me and Gint will play around a rock, paper, scissors, shoot to see who asks the next question.
Okay. I would like to see that. I'm in for that.
So Zach Ertz, we also brought him up yesterday.
Yeah.
The rumor was he was going to be gone. They didn't think he was going to last through day one of the draft, let alone day three. What do you think the future is there?
Dude, what a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, what a mess. It's such an ugly spot now because they're not going to give him the deal. Like, there's nothing that's going to change right now that's going to get him the contract. So I don't know what their leverage is either. Like, the draft is the time to do it for a guy like him. Aaron Rodgers, you could trade Aaron Rodgers whenever, right? Like, people will go and pay that price. But when Ertz is coming off a down season at his age, you just go, what is he going to be worth at this point? And is it worth it to the Eagles to trade him? Because as much as it is a weird, awkward, bad situation, here's the other thing too. Like, compensatory picks exist, and the Eagles live in that. I mean, Howie Roseman is Mr. Comp Pick. So if he's looking at it right now, the thing is they can go, all right, we could trade Ertz. So we could get this guy and remove him from our young quarterback, which isn't a good idea. Like, if you're going to help Jalen Hurts at this point, just from a raw talent standpoint, you do want Ertz on the field. So is it worth trading him if you get a third round or a fourth round pick? Is it worth doing that, or letting him hit free agency, hoping he gets a decent deal after the season, and then you get a comp pick in the following year that is a 3 or a 4? So it might be the same value for them to keep him at this point than trade him. He's probably a better value to keep. It's just, what is the relationship like? What is he like in the building? How committed is he? Because people had those questions at the beginning of the year. Maybe the contract affected him. Maybe it did. Maybe it did. So if that did affect him, then you are taking a risk here. But it seems like it's the only play at this point. I don't know if they didn't get good offers or they asked for too much, but he's here now. So I figure he's staying for the season at this point.
Yeah, man. So I said this the other day, Monday night actually, and I don't know what the cap hit is if they do trade him or release him and whatever it frees up, because they are in cap hell. I don't know how big that is, but I kind of said this. I kind of agree with you. I'm not trading away Zach Ertz for a bag of balls here. Like, I'm not trading Zach Ertz this year for a 5th round draft pick. Like, it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people just want him off the books. There's people that don't like him anymore because he gave up on the field last year. I don't know. I'm not giving up one of the Super Bowl heroes. And no, I'm not living in the past with these aging veterans, because Zach Ertz is not an aging veteran yet. But I'm not giving him up for a bag of balls. Let's see, what else do I have here before we move on to the Sixers for you, Vince? Okay. Do you feel the same, or do you feel more or less confident after the draft, or do you feel the same? Because some people, they can get caught up in the emotion of the draft. You get Devontae Smith, they're ready to go. The Eagles just added another win or two. You feel a little worse. You feel the same. How are you?
Yeah, I definitely feel better. I feel better because even if I was in the situation, I probably would have taken Justin Fields at 11. To be honest with you, if I was drafted there, I would have done it just because I get the quarterback position of what it is now. It would also make this year a bit more of a mess, right? As much as I like Fields, is the team overall that much better? I don't know. So looking at everything, the core of the team, where it's going, I do feel good about the philosophy. It makes me feel good. So all those things we talked about before, I feel solid about this team. You can't solve everything in the draft. Can they win 7 games? Can they win 8 games if they're a ball control team and the defense isn't god-awful? Yeah. I mean, the division's okay, but it's not amazing. So I feel like they're going to be competitive this year. And for the first year of Sirianni, that's all I'm looking for. Be competitive. Get people to have confidence in who you are and the direction of the franchise, and go from there. So I like the team. I like the team where they're at.
All right, I'm glad you brought up this year, because this is the last question when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles. What is this year like? What's a successful Eagles season for you this year? Because everyone wants to talk about those 3 first-round draft picks next year, right? Well, those 3 first-round draft picks, well, it's 2 right now, a possible 3rd with the Colts. Mm-hmm. Looks a lot better if Jalen Hurts is your guy, because then you don't have to worry about packaging those or trying to find your quarterback after this year. In my mind, 2021, and I'll continue to say this every day of the week until the season starts and is over, 2021 is about nothing else than finding out if Jalen Hurts is your franchise quarterback or not. Like, what the hell did you do last year for? What did you draft him for in the second round of last year if you're not finding that out this season? So what's a successful year for you? That's basically it for me. I don't expect them to be very good. Finding out if he is the guy, and it's the cherry on top if I'm proven wrong and he can be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't want him to be in the middle. If we get through the season and we're like, he's okay and maybe, then this year sucked. I mean, it sucks. Like, I want him to be either this is the guy, he's figured it out, he's feeling himself, he had the offseason, he had the system, like everything's in place now. Even if he's a game manager that can make a couple of plays, if that's who he is, that's fine. But if they can win games like that and you can build around that, that works. But if he sucks, that's great too. Like, if they lose a bunch of games, there's nothing wrong with winning like 3-4 games next year and having one of the top picks in the draft, plus these other first-round picks, plus some young guys this year that hopefully the guys around him do develop and show something. So if Hurts bombs out, but the draft is good and the coaching is good, then the Eagles are in a good spot still. Like, it is about the long con for this team. It is development. As much as you want Jalen Hurts to hit, I would love to see him hit, but let's be real. Like, I don't feel great that he's going to hit. So options are open.
I'm sorry. I keep saying we're moving on in a second, but I have to ask you this now. I have to ask you this because, man, if he doesn't hit, how does Howie have a job still? How do you hand select him in the second round of last year when you had your franchise quarterback at the time? Vince, we had you on the show one other time, and we know my stance, Gint stance, where you're at. We had the Wentz, Hurts, that whole conversation, right? If he doesn't pan out, how does he still have a job after this season? You hand selected him in the second round. You created the quarterback controversy with that pick. You shipped Carson Wentz to Indianapolis to let Jalen Hurts be the starter, and now he's not the guy? How does he survive that?
Okay, so here's how he survives it. And here's the thing that people haven't wanted to acknowledge with Jalen Hurts. Howie's told you they thought he's a backup from the jump. He said it from when they drafted this guy. They were like, yeah, he's a project guy. We'll develop.
I don't believe a damn word that comes out of his mouth.
I'm just saying, well, it's not just then at the draft. I mean, the fact that he's like, well, Joe Flacco's here and we'll see what competition is. Like, that's a joke. But, I mean, if he was the guy, they would have named him the guy. Like, they're making him work for everything, and they're not 100% sure how good he is. They were hoping that Wentz would be good and be the guy and stick around, and Hurts could do the gadgety stuff and develop for a couple of years, and if Wentz is hurt, you have a backup. I mean, it's a little space brainy. They were trying something.
So if that's the logic, how does he have a job now, Vince?
That's the question we've all been asking. I mean, nobody hasn't been asking that question, but it's just at this point now, with it what it is, if Hurts does bomb out, I can see why he keeps it, because it's not like, when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, the whole idea was this guy's going to take over, and that's blown up. I mean, that's because that was the indication that we think this guy is going to be the starter. But when they took Hurts in the second round, they said, yes, this is a project, and we're a quarterback factory and all those things. That nobody liked the idea, but that's what they said the idea was, and they've been true to that from the moment they drafted this guy. It's just that Wentz flamed out on him, and it was something they didn't expect. So I don't know how much I blame Howie, but he's been honest from the start about this.
He better be the guy, because the tweets I'm seeing these days.
Thank you,
dude. The one I saw today was the picture of Wentz with all the I don't know what it might have been. I don't even know what animal. I guess it was when he shot when he was hunting.
Oh yeah. And
then it said what our old quarterback used to. And the next slide it was Jalen Hurts and Jalen Reagor working out together. And I was like, dude, this guy better be it. He better be it. Because
I sent Gint a tweet yesterday that someone had the audacity to tweet Jalen Hurts will be in the MVP convo this year. And I just thought, my goodness, man, like, I hope so. That would be terrific. But like, what ideas pop into your head in May?
Because I'll tell you what, this whole like split fan base between those two will be over if he's the guy. I don't see any other reason.
Yeah.
But if he's bad, you still have have your when stands and
if he's bad, I want an apology.
Written.
I want a written apology to whom it may concern, and it concerns Dylan Davis. That's who it concerns. Okay, because I was told that there was one issue with this franchise, and Jalen Hurts is the guy, and he's it. So on and so forth. I hope he is.
Yeah, and especially with these young guys that you see Jalen Reagor post on his Instagram story, this offense is about to turn up. And
I'll tell you what, Jalen Reagor, you better turn the hell up, because if you don't, you're on the list too, bro. He's getting added to the list very shortly. I know he battled injuries last year. I get all that. I know the offense was awful. They didn't put him. I mean, my God, dude, they put him back to return a punt against Green Bay, and then we never saw him return, and he houses it, and then we never see him return a punt again. I don't know if we lost Vince, if what happened here, but we're just going to keep the show rolling. Oh, we did. Oh my God, we have two. Look, check this out. We have two Vince Quinns in the house. Look at this.
No idea what I'm doing.
Now I can't hear you. Gint, can you hear him?
No.
Vincenzo, we got nothing. Nope,
No.
Nothing. I don't think he's getting this. This is quality. This is a quality show here on the Daily Dose. Oh,
There we go.
Nothing.
All right, your Philadelphia 76.
Let's move on. Let me resend him this link real quick, and let's get into some Sixers talking. I'll ask you this first.
We play the Rockets tonight, we're gonna lose.
Can you not?
I'm just kidding. I don't even think. I'm gonna look up the injury report. I for some reason thought I saw 12 names for the Houston Rockets tonight on the injury report. I'm gonna double check just to make sure. Another on the side note, Milwaukee helps us out again last night.
Is he back? Hold on, let's see.
This is just a bit.
There we go. Yay!
I don't know what else to say. I feel like I'm such a boomer right now. Like, I can't get the technology. My stand's falling apart. I just forget. Like, I was trying to look at the chat in here in StreamYard, and then suddenly I was just like not in StreamYard anymore. Like, I'm just such an idiot. So we're doing great. At least you guys are professionals. But that's so
quality production here on the Daily Dose. That's what we got rolling for us, Vince.
Yes.
But we have moved on now to the team on the wall behind me, and I'll throw this to Gint first. I want to hear the words come out of your mouth, Matt. I think that's the first time I ever called you Matt. I didn't backtrack, rewind that one. I want to hear the words come out of your mouth, Gint. Will the 76ers get the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah. Last night pretty much locked it up. They have to go 5-2, and that's if Brooklyn wins out to get the 1 seed at this point with 7 games left, and our schedule is not very difficult. And Brooklyn still has Denver and Dallas in their next 2 on the road. So I'm going to say at this point. I do think they're going to get the 1 seed. I can even see Brooklyn resting some guys and kind of conceding it at this point. But
I'm here with Abe, man. Like it's just get me there. Get me to the finish line now. Because me and Gint used to break down the games and the takeaways, and I'm done. Like, we know what this team is. We know what the expectations are at this point. Just get me to the damn playoffs. Vince, will the 76ers get the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference?
They damn well better. The end of the schedule is easy. The end of this, go guys, go win these games. You know, they're healthy enough. Go win these games. Like, for Brooklyn, you still got problems with Harden. You got a couple of lead games on the Bucks. Win the conference. Because here's the other thing too, right? Like, to me, it is important for them to get the 1 seed, because if you're getting to this point where in the second round of the playoffs, you got to go against the Bucks or the Nets, whoever that 3 seed is. You don't want that. Like, you don't want to go against both of those teams. You want to make your road as easy as possible. So if I got to go the Knicks and then it's the Nets or the Bucks, that's a much easier path, because then the Nets or the Bucks have to beat each other. So for them to go through that series and then get to the Sixers, it's just a way better spot to be. So get the 1 seed. It's super important, and they should be able to do it. They should absolutely get it.
No, and I just think it's funny. Gint and I talk about this all the time with this reactionary fan base, where when they were hurt and they were missing 3 starters and Seth was missing in game and they lost to Milwaukee twice in a row, we can't even beat Milwaukee in a series now. And now they set a franchise record by margin of victory over the next 3 games. They've won 5 straight since Ben has come back. So I agree with you guys. Gint, I made a statement last week when, the 1 seed was the road was a lot more difficult. Not that they couldn't get it, but they made the road a lot more harder to get the 1 seed. I said they weren't falling to 3. Not that it really mattered because you were having to play Milwaukee in the second round anyway, but you'd have home court. They weren't falling to 3. I'm in agreement with you guys. The 76ers will have the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Now what it comes down to, guys, is who do they play in the first round? So Vince, I'll ask you this first. As of right now, I haven't even checked. I know the Heat have moved up to like 6 now, and I know there's a play-in tournament. So let's start there. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this damn play-in tournament? Because I ask every guest this, and it is so stupid, in my opinion. I know it's to pick up the lost revenue. I get that, but from like a basketball standpoint, what are we doing with the 10 seed having a chance to make the playoffs?
So I get that. My take on it is weird. I actually really like the play-in tournament. Here's why I like it, okay? It's first, I get the teams that are in it are junk, and I don't expect them to win a playoff series. They're the 7 or the 8 seed in the NBA. It just doesn't matter. Your odds of winning are basically non-existent. But you got to think about what it does to everything else around it. Like, the regular season is better because now teams have something to play for. Fans are clued in a little bit more. Being on the back end, it just gives you something for star players that might not play at the end of the season. Now they will. So that's one of those things. It just makes the regular season product better. That's good for the NBA. The other thing is it's not just the jockeying to get in on the back end, but it's the jockeying to get out on the top end. Like, look at LeBron and the Lakers, right? For them to be fussing about it at 7, I think is great, and exactly why the play-in is better. Because when you've got it, they don't want to be there. And think of the struggle that it is for them, because now for the Lakers, you got to go, you got to play that first game. If you lose that first game, now you got to play a second game. Even if you win, you've got this weird gap time where you've played a playoff game now, and now you've got to go and play a number 1 seed that's had a couple of extra days off. So that's another disadvantage. Like, you don't want that. So that battle right now between Dallas, Portland, and the Lakers, that's fascinating to me. Like, there's a game coming up in a couple of days, Friday night. The Lakers and Portland are going to play. That's a big game. So the intensity that goes into that is those teams are fighting over, I want to be in, you go in. Like, that's worth it to me. So I like what that brings to the table. Even if the teams that win it don't matter, I just think the league's better off.
Let me ask you, for the purpose of the buyout market, because Tyrone Johnson made a great point yesterday of how this play-in tournament kind of like bogged down the buyout market completely, because these 12 seeds that normally would have no shot to make the postseason now had that miracle chance to get in if they get this 10 seed and win those 2 games. But so how did you like that end of it?
Well, yeah, the buyout thing is tough because it definitely does make an adjustment. And it's one of those things where for right now, it's a struggle because everybody just assumes the buyout market's going to be there, and it's not. So what you're looking for is just, how does the league adjust? Like, that's all I see it as is, okay, this is what it was. Now it's going to change. Do you see a more active, aggressive trade deadline? Maybe that's what we see instead. But it's not something that we'll see until next year as everybody's getting a feel for all of this and what it looks like. So I don't have a huge problem with it. It is disappointing for the Sixers because the buyout market was something that you wanted to see them get an advantage of. But everybody's dealing with it for the most part, unless you're the Nets. And even for them, like, they got Aldridge and he had to retire. So, I don't think it's too big of a deal as much as it was an impact this year.
So you brought up the Western Conference, and first let me start my statement by saying nothing will make me happier if they somehow don't make the playoffs and lose in the play-in tournament. Nothing will make me happier if the Los Angeles Lakers do not make the playoffs. I don't give a damn. Okay, but looking at the East, and I get what you're saying, man, and we're all going to tune in and watch the play-in tournament. It's going to be extra playoff basketball. I get that, but it's like I could see if there was like the 8 and 9 seed duked it out. If there was a 3-game stretch or a 3-game like difference between the 8 and the 9 seed, and then they had a little 1 or best of 3 series to get the 8 seed. The fact that the 7 seed had has to play in it, and then the 10 seed, who could be held 9 games under 500 at the end of the year through 72 games, has a chance to make the playoffs, just kind of bothers me. And coming from a Sixers standpoint, Gint and I joke around about this all the time. No, everybody, I'm not saying the Sixers are going to lose to the Washington Wizards if they got the 8 seed. The Sixers could sweep them or win in 5. But when I look at it from a fan standpoint, the Sixers finally get the 1 seed. They finally get the highest seed in the Eastern Conference. And we'd have to play Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal in the first round. Like, not saying we wouldn't sweep the Wizards because they're not a good team after that. But I don't want that. I want, the Hornets.
Okay, but doesn't it help the tournament then? If that's a 10 seed,
the
chance to get in, doesn't that make it better?
No, because the Hornets are already my 8 seed as the season ends. That's who I want.
But that's selfish. I get what you're saying.
Sure, damn it. Yeah, you're right, Vince.
But that makes that justifies the play-in tournament, though. That justifies the tournament. If you don't want to play the 10 seed because this team has gotten hot and they're winning all these games now, and Russell Westbrook is doing historic things in the last couple of days, if you don't want to play that, that's a reason to say why the tournament can work. I mean, again, they're going to lose in 5 games or something, but if that's a kind of dangerous, at least annoying team to play, then you can justify the play-in. So it's another thing to say that it's okay.
Nah.
I just hate it because Milwaukee's gotten the 1 seed the last 2 years, and they played DJ Augustine in the first round.
Thank you.
And we're going to get one of the Indiana Pacers, who I thought were going to be one of the best 4 teams in the conference, or probably Washington, like Dylan said. But, I mean, like you said, if they can't handle business
and this also can make Matt McGinty correct, because he picked the Wizards to make the playoffs before the season starts, and that's not what I meant when I said give me your playoff prediction. Them in the 10th seed winning the play-in tournament is not what I meant, Gint. So, no, you're not correct. But anyway, let's move on deeper into the postseason, because I think that's where all our minds go. And no, the Sixers' minds should be focused on round 1 and whoever they're playing night to night in round 1 and 2. But, our minds, we have high expectations. We at least expect them to get to the Eastern Conference Finals finally, especially if they are that 1 seed. And then it's Brooklyn or Milwaukee. But let's just look at Brooklyn, because that's where 95% of this fan base's mindset goes to. Vince, just give me your predictions. I know we're weeks and weeks away from this potential matchup, but what are your thoughts on this? Because here's kind of where I stand on it. No, I'm not saying the 76ers are going to beat the Brooklyn Nets in a 7-game series. No, I'm not saying the 76ers are going to win the NBA title. However, I can't stand this pessimistic standpoint from some of these fans. And this isn't, I feel like I have a very level head when it comes to this team and the teams in this city, right? Mm-hmm. So I hope this isn't too fanboyish of me when I say this. People are bowing down to the Brooklyn Nets as if the number 1 seed 76ers, who are 23 games over 500, could win 50 games in a 72-game season, have 2 of the top 5 Defensive Player of the Year candidates, have one of the MVP candidates, have Doc Rivers, have everything going for you. The East runs through Broad Street, and we're just going to bow down to the Brooklyn Nets because they have 3 of the best isolation basketball players of all time. I'm not bowing down to a damn thing in this playoff run, okay? Where do you stand on a potential matchup with the Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah, you got to see what it looks like when they get there. I mean, how do you freak out about that? I get the Nets. They're obviously great competition, but those guys haven't played together much at all. And one of the things that I wonder about, honestly, is if you get to that point where it is the Eastern Conference Finals and the tensions and the emotions are really high, and let's say the Nets are down 2 games at the beginning of the series, Sixers take the first 2. How do they respond to that? I don't know how the chemistry of that team, if they're in crisis mode, because it's all been, once we get to the playoffs, we'll figure it out. Once they're healthy, they'll figure it out. But they haven't been healthy. And then once you are in the playoffs and you haven't built all of that up, what does it look like? So do they handle that? Does Kyrie, Harden, Durant, do they mesh? Can they handle that adversity as a group in their first significant battle together? And I don't know if I believe in that. And for the Sixers and the kind of chemistry they've got right now, I buy that. You know what I mean? The vibes of the Sixers versus the vibes of the Nets are so much better. So when I'm comparing all this, I feel good about that. I'll take the Sixers' chances. And here's the other thing, too. If they're the 1 seed, they're the 1 seed. You do have to be in Philly, and the home court advantage matters. And I'll take that any day of the week. Like, that is the best possible shot you can ask for.
No,
go get him. Go get
now
him.
let me throw this to you real quick before Gint goes. So a lot of people, all the eyeballs go to, one ball with 3 isolation players. And that's true. And like you mentioned, well, how do they respond? And some people want to think like, they won't get enough touches and that's how they'll fall apart. I'm not even focusing there. What about on the defensive end? Because they're a little bit better than when they first got put together and regrouped, right? But they're still not a good defensive team at all by any means, right? And like you said, they haven't even been fully healthy. So when they are come playoff time, if they're falling apart defensively, if the rotations aren't there, if there's no help defense, if there's no rim protection, right? I feel like that's where a lot of the frustration will set in. Not on the offensive side where Kyrie isn't getting the ball as much as he wants or Harden isn't, blah, blah, blah. On the defensive end, if you're seeing fast break layup, no help, no rotation, I think that's where a lot of the frustration could set in. And, I mean, hell, you just saw Milwaukee. Now, they didn't have Harden, like you said, but you just saw Milwaukee beat them twice with KD and with Kyrie going for over 30 in the last game. So that it's not like they're this big, bad, like, they're unbeatable.
Yeah, they're not the Warriors, right? This isn't the Warriors of a couple of years ago where it was like 72-10.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, they are a beatable team. The Sixers have a better record right now. Like, I mean, what are we doing here? Like, it's not 10 games into the season. The season is almost done. They have a better record. They've earned it. Like, everything about the Sixers looks and feels legitimate. This is an actual title contending team. This isn't a fluke. You know, you might look at the West, for example, and you see the Suns and the Jazz at the top, and you might go like, I don't know exactly how much I believe in those teams. And that's a whole different conversation. But like, how those teams look and feel as legit, like, year in and year out title contenders versus what the Sixers bring to the table in a typical year in, year out contender, you buy the Sixers more as a traditional contender. So yeah, like it's just people see the star power and they like to generalize it and simplify it. But the history of those guys is great, but they're a different team together. And for the Sixers now, for them to be that new team that has been growing and getting stronger and now feels like everything's really in place, they're as dangerous as anybody. It's open. It's wide open.
Let me dive into like a little bit of rotations because obviously the starters are going to play. They're going to play a lot. I assume George Hill's going to play a lot of minutes. I mean, they went out and got him. He's a vet. Dwight Howard's going to play those filler minutes for Joel Embiid, whether that's 10 minutes, 8 minutes. We don't really know what it's going to be. And then where it's kind of gets a little hairy and you don't really know where they're going to go. Do you still see Shake getting minutes in the playoffs?
I think Doc's going to give him a shot. I mean, Doc loves Shake. He'll get a couple of opportunities here and there. I think he'll have a shorter leash because you've got a lot of other guys that you can get in the rotation. So if you're going to play, and here's the other thing too, Ben Simmons can be such a horse that if you've got to put him out for so many minutes, you can do that and build around things that way. So you can mitigate the things that Shake brings to the table by just keeping Simmons on the floor for a couple more minutes. So yeah, Shake's going to get some shots, but there's no reason to give him like a long leash. There's no reason to believe that he's just in a little funk. He's a young guy that had surprised before. He's been disappointing this year. It is what it is at this point.
So then we get to a guy who just appeared on the Kia's top 5 NBA defensive players in the East. I mean, I'm looking at a Brooklyn series, and I'm looking at a game where you're trailing by 7 to 9 points, and you're going to have Ben Simmons on the floor because he's one of your best 3 players on the team. And I don't see how you can have him and Matisse on the floor at the same time when you're trailing by that amount of points. I mean, at that point, you have 2 guys that can't stretch the floor. You don't want Embiid on the 3-point line consistently against this Brooklyn Nets team, considering the amount of rim protection they have is the same in this call that we're having right now. So I don't really know. Like, how much do you see Matisse getting minutes in those games?
When they're down, yeah, it's going to be incredibly complicated. How much time can you give him when he's a limited offensive player? I mean, Simmons is going to get so much time on the defensive end. He's going to need a breather here and there. So I think there's going to be points just for the sake of letting Ben get rest, for the sake of not just the game but the series. You got to have a couple of minutes in there where Matisse can give him a breather that way. But other than that, yeah, if they're down a lot, I mean, you're going to see depending on where the series is standing, it might be desperation time. You might get a lot of Furkan Korkmaz minutes just because you got a gun a little bit, and you're going to have to take those sacrifices to try to play the Nets game with them. Like, sometimes that's what it's going to be. You would figure there's going to be games where the Sixers are rolling, and like Dylan was just talking about, the defensive frustration, and the Nets are trying to catch up in that way because they're just being a sieve. But On the other side, yeah, the Sixers, if they get down early and they're down 17 points at the end of the first quarter, which the Nets can do, then it's going to be one of those spots where, yeah, you got to take risks. And for Doc, that's been the question with the rotations. So I understand all the questions, and I don't know if he's got answers to that yet.
No, and the one thing is, I don't know if you guys seen this a lot or not, but over the last couple of days, I've gotten a lot of comments saying that the Sixers bench will be costly in the playoffs. And what I think people need to understand, and what I guess I'm hopeful for, is the fact that, like, because you watch the Bulls game and you watch some of these games where the bench, I mean, the starters build a 20, 25 point lead. They come out and you watch the bench give it up. Well, that's not going to happen in the playoffs because he's not going to roll out Mike Scott and Anthony Tolliver and Paul Reed and Tyrese Maxey in a playoff game unless they're up by like 30. And if they're up by 30 and he does that and it gets cut to 18, the starters are going right back in. It's not getting to 5, right? But I guess my question to you, Vince, is like, we're talking rotation and players, but does it scare you at all that Doc might not shrink the rotation? He might, but he hasn't done anything so far this year to shrink the rotation. He's made public statements. He doesn't care if he has to roll out 10 guys. Does that worry you at all? Because you can't do that, in my opinion. Playing Brooklyn, playing Milwaukee, you can't play 10 guys. At max, you have 9 because you have 2 guards, you have Tease for defensive reasons, and you have Howard for Joel. But that's max for me. What's your rotation? And are you worried at all that Doc doesn't shrink it? Because Gint, what did you bring up with the Clippers last year? He didn't shrink the rotation in LA.
Yeah, he sticks to his guns. Montrezl Harrell was getting killed in a series against Denver, and he was still rolling him out there to play Jokic. And he hasn't been a guy to change his ways. And like you said, I know the schedule's kind of playing a burden to that with how many games we're playing to end the season. So he might still be playing a lot of guys, but I agree with Dylan. You can't have 10 guys in a rotation.
Yeah, they shouldn't have 10 guys in the rotation. It's just not there. But the other thing is, and this is part of the Doc Rivers experience, is this is part of why those guys love him. You know what I mean? The fact that he's been going with 10 guys and giving those guys minutes, and when they blow leads like this in consecutive games, he looks at it and goes, well, these are my guys, and it's just been 2 games, and it's not a big deal. So it's endearing, but when you stick to your principles too much as that might help you get the 1 seed, if that's going to cost you playoff losses, then what's it all worth? So did he learn anything from last year? I guess is part of the question. I mean, he did get fired for it, right? That's a big part of the equation. So for him to have the multiple 3-1 series that he's blown, does this stick with him? Does this change anything? Do his assistants? I mean, Sam Cassell was with him as well. So does he have any say about this? Has he changed his mind on it? How does he feel about the playoffs? What is his weight in these kinds of decisions? Those are the things I'm looking at as well. And yeah, it shouldn't be 10 guys. It shouldn't be 10.
All right. I just have one more question for you after this one, but what is
5 more questions, by the way. Based on the Eagles
You're
segment.
learning quick here. You're learning quick here.
I'm very smart, except
what is Vince Quinn's prediction for the 76ers playoff run? If healthy, obviously, we still have 7 games of the regular season left. We could have you back on the show. Who knows when, before the playoffs, into the playoffs. But if in case we don't, what is Vince Quinn's prediction for the 76ers playoff run?
Outside of a miraculously healthy LeBron James, the Sixers are winning the title. They're winning the title. I got to look at this and go, like we're talking about, with the 1 seed and the opportunities there and the way they're clicking and everybody being healthy, for Embiid to say things like the maturity of Embiid is really the thing that solidifies all of it for me, because it's not just the player that he's been this year, but when you're hearing those little things like the other day, it's like, yeah, I just want to get the other guy's confidence up. I want to work on my passing and get my passing up for the playoffs. I'm going to pace myself and make sure I'm ready for those games, but he's still playing good basketball. So for him to balance all of those things and be the center of the team, not as a player, but emotionally as well, and to get all of that now, what else can you ask for? So I see this whole thing, and it just feels like a year where it's going to be ugly, and there's going to be, if they're playing the Nets in a series, we're going to be pulling our hair out. But I think they win that series, especially as a 1 seed. And you look at the West, and I like the Suns. I think they're fun. I think they can make it to the finals. I think the Sixers would beat a team like that. So it just depends on where the Lakers lie.
Vince, you got a microphone over there?
Do I have a microphone?
Yeah.
I mean, no. This is what I got.
I was going to say.
Wait. This is supposed to be a gaming headset, and I removed the microphone. So
Okay, do me a favor.
Here's a microphone.
Drop the mic. After that, because you are getting clipped, my friend. That is getting clipped, and I'm sorry if you go on freezing cold takes at one point or another in this playoff run if it doesn't pan out that way. But Vince Quinn just got me fired up on the Daily Dose, and I may or may not share the same opinion. But we'll get to that as the playoffs start. Go ahead, Gint.
So you did say that, obviously, and that's what we're all hoping for.
Look at the smile on this kid's face.
Yeah, there we go.
Just the pessimistic side of me is this. If it doesn't work out,
come on, man,
and we lose to, I don't want to say Brooklyn because I don't think it's like fair, to be honest, with what they got going. If that clicks, I don't think anyone can stop them. If they lose to anyone but Brooklyn, do you see a change coming regarding Ben Simmons? That's kind of what I'm going to go to.
Well, it just depends on what he looks like for that to happen, right? I mean, if he's the Ben Simmons of previous playoffs, then yeah, I think you have to have the conversation. Daryl Morey's already had it. So if it doesn't work again, and the thing is, everything else has hit another level, right? Tobias Harris is going back to Clippers. Tobias Harris, you've seen a great play from him. Embiid's hit a whole other level. The starting five in general as a unit looks great. So when all of those things are working, signing Dwight Howard and getting him to work out. So they've nailed everything so far. And if Simmons is the thing that is clearly holding them back, and at times during the season you can see that, but he does have that value, somebody's willing to do it. He might be a better fit somewhere else with different stars. They have to look at that if he's that kind of guy. They absolutely have to. And Morey's the guy to do it, which is the nice thing. The fact that he considered that already as a brand new GM to the team, that was an encouraging thing for me long term. So yeah, absolutely on the table, 100%.
Yeah. To a point though, because Daryl Morey's a guy that has never shrunk in the moment of making a big deal to get his team. Like, he traded Clint Capella for Robert Covington because he thought it was the best way to beat the Lakers. It wasn't alarming to you that he didn't make any sort of deal that you would have said would put them over the top? Because obviously we were fringe with Brooklyn, with Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. And the guy he got was George Hill, who had played 14 games at the time. Was that alarming to you at all, or was that you thought George Hill was the guy?
I thought it was unfortunate. It's not that I thought George Hill was the guy. I think everybody thought Lowry was the guy. But the problem is, if the Raptors aren't going to deal him, there's just nothing you can do. Like, the price wasn't good enough, and nobody was willing to make the deal. So, I mean, when a lot of teams that were contenders wanted that guy and couldn't get that guy, it just is what it is. So I can't blame Daryl Morey for that. He was aggressive, like all the reporting was that the Sixers were trying hard to get him. So you lost out, everybody lost out, and the Raptors lost out. Because look at the Raptors. Like, who cares? So good luck with Kyle Lowry, fellas, but you could have gotten something. So that's the choice that they made. And, yeah, I don't feel bad about it. You got to make do with what you got. George Hill was a nice ad, and you just hope he can start hitting some shots.
All right, Vince, before we get you out of here, one other team I want to touch on for one question is the team in pinstripes. They finally won back-to-back games. Holy shit, who knew it could happen? What is this Phillies team in your own words? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, it's sloppy. It's sloppy. I mean, just the errors everywhere. Like, the not handing in the lineup card was really the worst possible thing that could happen, right? Like, not having De Los Santos on the lineup card is as simple and dumb, and I understand small as it is. This is your professional, big-time Yankees World Series manager, and when the team looks like this, and he's made questionable decisions anyway with bringing in different relievers and stuff, like, for him to have the problems he's had and then do something that's so just ridiculously amateurish, it's a horrible look. And it is fitting of who the Phillies are right now. Like, nobody, if they have it together, they have it together in spurts. They don't have it together as a group. Like, the offense has been totally disappointing this year. The bullpen's been bad. You get fits and starts from the starting unit with the pitching. So none of it's consistent. They can't find a center fielder to save their lives. And it's frustrating as hell. They're just very frustrating.
How much of it goes on injuries, though, for you? Because looking at it, even from just a lineup perspective, like Bryce is now missing time. JT's missed some time. Didi's missed some time. Segura's been out for a whole hell of a while now. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Archie Bradley's been out for a while. Alvarado got suspended. And so how much of that falls into a factor for you?
Well, yeah, injuries absolutely matter, especially with baseball. It's such a rhythm game, right? I mean, these guys, they get into a groove, then they start hitting for a couple of weeks, then they get out of a groove, they can't hit for a couple of weeks. And eventually, over the course of the season, you just get a point where as all these guys are, and wait, this arm, here we go, as they're going up and down, As you're going through all this, there's just points where 5 guys all just happen to hit right here at the same time. And now you're just shredding people for 2 weeks straight. And so they haven't had the opportunity for that yet. So when the bats come around, which will happen eventually, then I think people are going to start to feel better about this team because that's who they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be a big mashing lineup in a small ballpark. So you want to see that come around, and that'll help a little bit. The biggest thing you can take away, though, is as much as they've been a mess and sloppy and they've had the injuries, they're at the top of the division. So look around. I mean, nobody's playing well. So for them to be a team that nobody expected them to win the division, right now they're at the top of the division. Nobody's playing good baseball. They're doing okay, all things considered, and you got a lot of time to figure it out. So that's all you can take.
Abe says this division is sloppy, and Mark calls it the NFC East of baseball. And that's where we'll wrap up today's show. Vince, tell the people where they can find all your work because you are a very busy man.
I certainly am. So the main place you can find me is Last Out Media. We're running a podcast studio right outside of Philly. So if you want to record podcasts there, you want just help with your podcast, I'll talk with you about it, how to get better as a host, all those different things. I will do that. We can set that up, lastoutmedia.com, or you can just DM me on Twitter at It's Vince Quinn. Obviously, when I'm not doing that, I'm with CBS Sports Radio, so I'm doing that on the weekends. You can catch me in the overnights there, nationally syndicated show. And also WIP once in a while. I'm doing 2 shows on WIP next week. I just got the word on that. So I'll put the times out in a little bit. But I'm all over the place. Basically anywhere on the radio or with a podcast, I'm there in some way, shape, or form. So there you go.
If there's a microphone in the room, Vince Quinn is there. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thank you guys for commenting so much. Makes the show a lot of fun. Have a nice night.